Friends, tonight we step into a slow-burning American horror story set in the state of Maine. It tells the tale of a fisherman who, while visiting a secluded river in the autumn of 2002, discovers an unknown entity calling his name from within the dark waters. So before you settle in, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, provided, of course, that you genuinely enjoy my work. Also, let me know in the comments where you are watching from and what the time is there right now. It is always wonderful to see who is joining us from all corners of the globe. Now dim the lights a little. Feel free to turn on the fan too, to make yourself comfortable. And let's all embark on today's journey together. Maine, USA. October 2002, 24 years ago. Autumn arrived quietly across the forests of northern Maine. Golden leaves drifted gently onto the slow-moving river. Cold morning fog covered the water like a soft gray blanket. The air smelled of pine trees, wet earth, and fresh river water. For local fishermen, October was the best time of the year. Large trout, salmon, and northern pike filled the deep channels. But the older residents of the nearby town always repeated the same warning. Never stay on the river after sunset. Nobody explained why, and most younger fishermen simply laughed. They believed the warning was nothing more than an old legend. One of those men was Daniel Harper. Daniel was 38 years old. He had spent nearly 20 years fishing the rivers of Maine. He wasn't reckless. He simply believed that every strange story had a logical explanation. Ghosts didn't exist. Monsters didn't hide beneath the water. And mysterious voices were only the sounds of wind echoing through the trees. At least, that was what he believed. On a cool Friday afternoon, Daniel loaded his small aluminum fishing boat onto the back of his old pickup truck. His wife Emily stood on the porch holding a warm cup of coffee. "You'll be home before dark?" she asked. Daniel smiled. "Of course. I only need a couple of hours." Their 11-year-old daughter Lily ran across the yard carrying his lucky fishing hat. She laughed as she handed it to him. "Bring home the biggest fish in Maine." Daniel placed the old hat on his head and smiled. "I'll do my best." He kissed both of them goodbye, started the truck, and drove toward Black Cedar River. It was nearly an hour away. The road became narrower as he entered the forest. Cell phone service disappeared. The trees grew taller. The sunlight became weaker beneath the thick pine branches. Daniel had fished this river many times before. It had never disappointed him. But today, something felt different. He couldn't explain it. The closer he came, the quieter the forest became. No birds, no squirrels, no sound except the truck engine rolling over fallen leaves. Even before reaching the river, an uncomfortable feeling settled in his chest. Still, he ignored it. He parked beside the old wooden boat ramp. The place was completely empty. No other trucks, no trailers, no fishermen, only silence. Daniel looked around and smiled to himself. Perfect. The whole river to myself. He untied the boat, pushed it gently into the dark water, and climbed aboard. The small engine started immediately. Within seconds, he drifted slowly into the cold river fog. He had no idea that this ordinary fishing trip would become the last time he ever entered Black Cedar River. Daniel guided his small aluminum boat farther upstream. The engine hummed softly across the still water. The afternoon sun hung low in the sky, casting long golden reflections across the river. For a few minutes, everything felt normal again. The uneasy feeling he had experienced on the drive slowly faded. He smiled. Maybe the old stories really were nothing more than local folklore. The river curved gently between towering pine trees. Bright red and orange leaves floated across the surface. Normally, Daniel would see ducks swimming near the shoreline, herons standing in the shallows, or bald eagles circling high above the forest. But not today. There wasn't a single bird, not one. Even the insects seemed to have disappeared. The silence wasn't peaceful. It felt unnatural. Daniel slowed the boat and looked around. "That's strange," he whispered. The only sound was the gentle splash of water against the aluminum hull. Nothing else. He checked his watch. 4:42 p.m. Plenty of daylight remained. He continued deeper into the river. After another 15 minutes, he reached an old bend known by local fishermen as Dead Man's Crossing. Daniel had heard the name before. Years earlier, an old bait shop owner had warned him never to fish there after sunset. Daniel had laughed. "What happens?" The old man had simply answered, "You hear things." Daniel never believed him. Until now. He dropped the anchor into the deep water. The river here looked almost black. It was impossible to see beneath the surface. He baited his hook with a live nightcrawler, cast his line, and settled back into his seat. 5 minutes passed. Nothing. 10 minutes. Still nothing. The river remained perfectly still. Then, without warning, his fishing rod bent sharply. The reel screamed. The line shot into the deep water. Daniel grabbed the rod with both hands. "Now that's a fish." He tightened his grip and pulled. Whatever was on the other end was incredibly strong. It didn't swim like a trout. It didn't fight like a salmon. It simply pulled downward. Slowly, relentlessly, as if it wanted to drag the boat into the river. Daniel planted his boots against the floor. Every muscle in his arms strained. The line became tighter and tighter. Then, everything stopped. No movement, no splashing, only an unbelievable weight beneath the water. His breathing became heavier. "What are you?" he muttered. He pulled again. Nothing. It was like the hook had caught the bottom of the river, or something, far heavier than any fish. Suddenly, the line jerked violently. Daniel stumbled forward. The rod nearly slipped from his hands. Then, snap! The fishing line broke. The force sent him backward onto the floor of the boat. He stared at the loose line, his strongest fishing line, broken as if it were sewing thread. He slowly stood. The river became completely still again. Not even a ripple remained. Whatever had been below was gone. Daniel looked across the dark water for the first time that day. He felt genuine fear. A cold breeze swept across the river. The temperature dropped noticeably. He pulled his jacket tighter. Then he noticed something even stranger. The thick evening fog was beginning to roll across the water, much earlier than usual. Within minutes, the opposite shoreline disappeared. The trees faded into gray shadows. Daniel suddenly remembered the old warning: never stay on the river after sunset. He looked toward the fading sun. For the first time in many years, he decided it might be wise to leave early. He reached for the anchor rope, completely unaware that something beneath the dark water was already watching him. Daniel quickly pulled up the anchor. The thick fog continued to spread across the river. Only minutes earlier, he could clearly see both riverbanks. Now, everything beyond 20 feet had disappeared into a wall of gray. He climbed behind the small outboard motor. "Let's get home." He pulled the starter cord. Nothing. He frowned. He pulled again. The engine coughed, then fell silent. One more pull. Still nothing. Daniel stared at the motor in disbelief. It had never failed him before, not once. He checked the fuel line. Everything looked normal. He tried again. Silence. A cold breeze swept across the water. For the first time that afternoon, Daniel felt completely alone. The river seemed endless. The forest had vanished behind the fog. There was no sign of another boat. No voices, no wildlife. Only silence. Then, splash. Daniel froze. The sound had come from somewhere behind the boat. Not a fish, not a beaver. It sounded like a person taking a slow step through shallow water. He turned around. Nothing, only fog. Another step, splash. Then another, splash. The sound grew closer, slow, steady, deliberate, as if someone was walking directly toward his boat. But the water where he had anchored was more than 30 feet deep. No one could possibly be standing there. Daniel's heartbeat quickened. He grabbed the powerful flashlight from his tackle box. The bright beam sliced through the fog. Empty water, nothing else. He slowly swept the light from left to right. Still nothing. The footsteps stopped. The silence returned. Daniel let out a nervous breath. "I'm imagining things," he whispered. Then, a voice floated through the mist, soft, weak, almost like a whisper carried by the wind. Daniel. His entire body went rigid. His name. Someone had just called his name. He looked around wildly. "Who's there?" No answer. The fog drifted quietly across the river. Daniel swallowed hard. There better not be anyone messing with me. His own voice sounded strange, as though the fog swallowed every word. Then the whisper came again, closer this time. "Daniel?" His hands began to tremble. He hadn't seen another person all afternoon. No one knew exactly where he was. Cell phones didn't work this deep in the forest. So, who knew his name? The whisper changed. This time, it sounded desperate. "Hey, help me." Daniel felt a knot tighten in his stomach. It sounded like a man, weak, in pain, as if someone were drowning nearby. Every instinct told him to search. If someone truly needed help, he couldn't ignore it. He picked up a life ring and leaned over the side of the boat. "Where are you?" he shouted. "I can't see you." Silence. Then, from somewhere just a few feet away, "I'm here." Daniel swung the flashlight toward the voice. Nothing. Only dark water, no swimmer, no boat, no movement. His breathing became faster. The beam of the flashlight trembled in his hands. Suddenly, tiny bubbles began rising from beneath the boat. At first, just a few, then dozens. The calm river started to ripple. Daniel slowly leaned forward, trying to see into the black water. The bubbles stopped. Everything became still again. For one terrifying second, he thought it was over. Then, just beneath the surface, he saw it. A pale human face, floating silently in the darkness. Its eyes were wide open, staring directly at him. Its skin looked gray, its mouth hung slightly open, and without blinking, it slowly began to rise toward the surface. Daniel stumbled backward in horror. The flashlight slipped from his hand and crashed onto the floor of the boat. When he looked back, the face was gone. The river was calm once again, as if nothing had ever been there. Daniel's chest rose and fell rapidly. His heart pounded so hard he could hear it in his ears. He had spent his entire life believing ghost stories were nonsense. But now, alone in the middle of Black Cedar River, surrounded by thick fog, He wasn't so sure anymore, and somewhere beyond the gray mist, something was still watching him. Daniel stood frozen. His breathing was quick and uneven. His eyes searched every inch of the dark water. The pale face had disappeared, but the feeling of being watched had only grown stronger. He picked up the flashlight with shaking hands. It still worked. The bright beams swept across the river. Nothing, just thick fog and black water. He tried to convince himself that what he had seen was only a reflection, maybe a floating log, maybe his imagination. But deep inside, he knew that wasn't true. Then, bang! Something slammed against the bottom of the boat. The entire aluminum hull jumped violently. Daniel nearly lost his balance. "What was that?" he whispered. Before he could think, another impact came. Bang! Even harder this time. The boat rocked from side to side. Water splashed over the edge. Daniel grabbed the sides of the boat to steady himself. His heart was racing. He looked into the water. Nothing. Only darkness. Then, bang! A third strike. This one felt as if something enormous had thrown itself against the underside of the boat. The sound echoed through the silent river. Daniel shouted, "Who's there?" No answer. Only the slow movement of the fog. Then, everything stopped. The river became perfectly still again. Not a ripple, not a sound. Daniel listened carefully. The silence lasted almost 30 seconds. Then he heard something completely different. Drip. A single drop of water landed on the floor of the boat. He looked up. The sky was clear above the fog. It wasn't raining. Another drop. Drip. Then another. Drip. Daniel slowly turned toward the back of the boat. Water was falling onto the aluminum floor, as if someone soaking wet were standing nearby. But no one was there. His flashlight moved slowly across the floor, and then he saw them. Fresh, wet, footprints, bare human footprints, one after another. They appeared on the floor of the boat without anyone making them. The first footprint formed near the stern, then another, then another. Each one glistened with cold river water. Daniel watched in horror as the invisible footprints continued forward. Step after step after step, as though someone unseen had climbed out of the river and was walking through his boat. The footprints stopped only a few feet in front of him. There was nothing there, nothing he could see. But Daniel could feel it. Someone, or something, was standing directly in front of him. The cold around him became unbearable. His breath turned white in the air. The flashlight flickered. Once, twice, 3 times. The light grew dim, then a whisper drifted through the silence, so close. It felt as if warm breath had touched his ear. "You stayed too late." Daniel's entire body froze. He slowly turned his head. There was no one beside him. Yet the whisper had come from only inches away. His hands shook uncontrollably. Every instinct screamed at him to get off the river, right now. He rushed toward the engine and grabbed the starter cord. 1 pull, nothing. 2 pulls, still nothing. Behind him, another wet footprint appeared, then another, moving closer, closing the distance between them. Daniel didn't dare look back again. He wrapped both hands around the starter cord, closed his eyes, and pulled with every ounce of strength he had. The engine exploded to life with a loud roar. At that exact moment, a chilling scream echoed across Black Cedar River. It wasn't human, it wasn't an animal. It was something ancient, something filled with rage. And it came from somewhere deep within the fog behind him. Daniel shoved the throttle forward. The boat surged ahead through the dark water. He didn't look back. He couldn't. because deep inside, he knew one terrifying truth. Whatever had climbed into his boat hadn't been trying to scare him. It had been trying to keep him there forever. Daniel pushed the throttle as far forward as it would go. The little aluminum boat shot through the dark river. Cold water sprayed over the sides. The fog swallowed everything ahead of him. He could barely see the bow of his own boat. His hands gripped the steering handle so tightly that his knuckles turned white. "Just keep going," he whispered to himself. "Don't stop." The engine roared through the silence. For a few moments, nothing happened. Then, he heard another engine, far behind him. A low, raspy, two-stroke engine, old, uneven, as if it hadn't been started in years. Daniel looked over his shoulder. Nothing. Only a wall of gray fog, but the sound was real. It grew louder, closer, closer. Someone was following him. His heartbeat pounded in his ears. "Who is out here?" he shouted. The river gave no answer, only the distant growl of the unseen engine. Daniel pushed the throttle even harder. The boat bounced over small waves. Branches hanging over the river scraped against his shoulders as he raced through the narrow channel. Then, he noticed something impossible. The sound behind him was gaining fast, much too fast. No boat on this river could move that quickly through such thick fog. Yet the unseen engine was almost beside him now. He still couldn't see it, only hear it. The noise suddenly shifted to his left, then to his right, as though the mysterious boat were circling him, invisible, playing with him. Daniel's breathing became shallow. He refused to look away from the river ahead. A few seconds later, the engine sound stopped. Instantly, no slowing down, no fading away. It simply ceased. The silence that followed was even more terrifying. Then, a loud splash erupted just behind his boat. Daniel couldn't stop himself. He glanced back. For the first time, he saw it. An old wooden fishing boat emerged from the fog. It drifted silently, its faded green paint peeled away in long strips. The hull was cracked. The bow sat unusually low in the water. It looked abandoned, as though it had been floating for decades. No navigation lights, no registration numbers, no movement. Only one figure sat inside. A man, wearing an old yellow raincoat. His head hung low, his face hidden beneath the brim of a weathered fishing hat. The boat made no wake. It simply glided across the water, without a sound. Daniel stared in disbelief. Then, the figure slowly lifted its head. Its face was deathly pale. River water poured from its hair. Its empty white eyes locked onto Daniel, and then it smiled. A long, unnatural smile, too wide for any human face. Daniel felt every hair on his body stand up. He gasped and looked forward again. No, this can't be happening. He refused to look back a second time. Instead, he focused on escaping. The shoreline began to appear through the thinning fog. He recognized a fallen oak tree leaning over the river. He was getting close to the public boat ramp. Hope surged through him. Just a little farther. Then, a whisper floated across the water. Not from behind him, not from the river, but from inside his own boat. Soft, cold, only inches from his ear. "You can't leave." Daniel's blood ran cold. He didn't turn around. He couldn't. He knew, without seeing, that whatever had boarded his boat earlier had never actually left. He slammed the throttle one last time. The engine screamed. The boat burst out of the fog. Ahead, he could finally see the wooden dock and the lights of the boat ramp glowing in the distance. He had almost made it. But he had no idea that the most terrifying part of the night was still waiting for him on shore. Daniel's boat slammed gently against the wooden dock. His hands were shaking so badly that he could barely tie the rope. He jumped onto the dock without looking back. For the first time in nearly an hour, solid ground felt safe. He took several deep breaths. The cold night air filled his lungs. The fog still hovered over Black Cedar River, but it no longer seemed to move. It simply waited, watching. Daniel pulled his boat onto the trailer as quickly as he could. His fingers were numb. He dropped the winch handle twice before finally locking the boat into place. Just as he reached for the truck door, an old voice spoke behind him. "You made it out." Daniel spun around. An elderly man stood beneath a flickering lamp near the boat ramp. He wore a thick flannel jacket, old rubber fishing boots, and a faded green cap that looked almost as old as he was. His weathered face was lined with deep wrinkles, but it was his eyes that caught Daniel's attention. They weren't surprised, they looked sad. The old man slowly walked closer. "I've been waiting." Daniel stared at him. "Waiting for who?" The old man answered quietly. "For whoever came back." A chill ran through Daniel's body. "What do you mean?" The old fisherman looked toward the river before speaking. "Tell me, did you hear someone call your name?" Daniel's face turned pale. He hadn't told anyone what had happened. Not a single word. Yet this stranger knew. Daniel swallowed. "Yes." The old man closed his eyes for a moment, then he nodded. "I was afraid you'd say that." Neither man spoke for several seconds. Only the gentle sound of water reached the dock. Finally, the old man extended his hand. "My name is Walter Briggs. I've lived beside this river for 75 years. Daniel shook his hand. "I'm Daniel Harper." Walter looked directly into his eyes. "Did you see the fisherman?" Daniel hesitated, then he slowly nodded again. "I saw an old wooden boat, a man in a yellow raincoat." Walter's expression never changed. "I knew it." Daniel stepped back. "Who was he?" Walter sighed deeply. His voice became almost a whisper. "His name was Thomas Keegan. He disappeared on this river in the autumn of 1977. Almost 25 years ago." Daniel listened silently. Thomas was one of the best fishermen in the county. He knew every bend, every rock, every deep hole. One evening, he stayed out after sunset. He never came home. Daniel frowned. "They never found him?" Walter slowly shook his head. "They found his boat drifting near Dead Man's Crossing. His fishing rod was still inside. So was his tackle box. But Thomas was gone. No body, no footprints, no sign of a struggle, just an empty boat." The river seemed even quieter as Walter continued. "Back then, everyone believed he had drowned. But strange things started happening. Other fishermen began hearing voices. They heard someone calling their names. Some saw lights moving across the water. Others claimed an old wooden boat followed them through the fog. Daniel's breathing became heavier. "I saw that boat." Walter nodded slowly. "I know. There have been others." Daniel looked toward the dark river. "Did they survive?" Walter remained silent for a long moment. Finally, he answered, "Most did, but not all." Daniel felt his stomach tighten. Walter lowered his voice. "The river chooses. It doesn't come every night. Sometimes years pass. Then suddenly, it calls another fisherman." Daniel looked back at his own aluminum boat. Something caught his eye. The driver's seat set out in deck was soaked. as though someone had been sitting there only moments ago. Walter noticed it too. His face became completely still. He looked at Daniel. In all these years, I've learned one thing. Daniel waited. Walter spoke the words slowly. If the river lets you leave, never go back. Daniel stared at the black water one last time. The fog drifted silently across its surface. For just a second, he thought he saw an old wooden boat floating far out in the darkness, watching, waiting. Then, it disappeared. Daniel couldn't stop thinking about Walter's story. It haunted him all weekend. He barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the pale fisherman, the empty white eyes, the unnatural smile, and the old wooden boat drifting through the fog. By Monday morning, he decided he needed answers, not ghost stories, the truth. So he drove to the small public library in the nearby town. The building was old, quiet. Its shelves held decades of local newspapers and town records. The librarian, an elderly woman named Margaret Ellis, greeted him with a smile. "I'm looking for something from 1977, Daniel said. A fisherman named Thomas Keegan." Margaret's smile faded. "You've heard about him?" Daniel nodded. "I need to know what happened." She studied him for a moment, then disappeared into the archive room. A few minutes later, she returned carrying a dusty box filled with newspaper clippings. Daniel carefully unfolded the first article. The headline read, "Local Fisherman Missing on Black Cedar River, October 18th, 1977. According to the report, Thomas Keegan had left home alone just before noon. He planned to spend only a few hours fishing. His wife expected him home before dinner, but he never returned. The following morning, search teams found his wooden fishing boat drifting near Dead Man's Crossing. His fishing rod was still leaning against the seat. His tackle box was untouched. His lunch sat unopened. Nothing appeared stolen. Nothing appeared damaged. It looked as though Thomas had simply vanished. Daniel turned to another article. It described one of the largest search operations the county had ever seen. State police, volunteer firefighters, divers, even helicopters searched for nearly 2 weeks. They recovered nothing. No body, no clothing, no evidence. The official report concluded that Thomas had accidentally drowned. But one final article caught Daniel's attention. It wasn't written by a reporter. It was an interview with Thomas's wife. Her final words sent a chill through him. "My husband told me someone had been calling his name for the river for weeks. He said the voice sounded familiar, but every time he looked, no one was there." Daniel's hands began to shake. He remembered hearing his own name exactly the same way. He continued reading. The article explained that many people dismissed Thomas's claims. They believed stress or exhaustion had affected his mind. Only after he disappeared did others admit hearing the same mysterious voice. Margaret quietly sat across from Daniel. "There was one detail they never printed," she said. Daniel looked up. "What detail?" She leaned closer. The search team found something carved into the inside of Thomas's boat. Daniel's heartbeat quickened. "What was it?" Margaret answered softly. 3 words. "Don't answer it." Daniel felt cold all over. He hadn't told anyone that a voice had called his name. Yet somehow, 25 years earlier, Thomas Keegan had tried to warn whoever came after him. Daniel closed the newspaper. Outside, and the afternoon sky had grown dark. Rain tapped gently against the library windows. As he stood to leave, Margaret called after him. "Mr. Harper." He turned. "If you ever hear that voice again, don't answer." Daniel gave a silent nod. But deep inside, he feared it was already too late. Because the night before, while lying awake in bed, he had heard something outside his bedroom window. A whisper. Soft. Familiar. "Daniel." And this time, it hadn't come from the river. Daniel stood frozen beside his bedroom window. The whisper had been unmistakable. Soft. Calm. And impossibly close. "Daniel." He slowly pulled back the curtain. Outside, the yard was empty. The porch light cast a pale yellow glow across the grass. Nothing moved. No wind, no animals. No one stood outside. Yet the voice had sounded as if someone had been only a few feet away. Daniel locked every door in the house that night. He checked every window twice. Sleep never came. Every tiny creak of the old house made him sit upright. When morning finally arrived, he looked exhausted. Emily noticed immediately. "You look like you haven't slept." Daniel forced a weak smile. "I'm fine." But he wasn't. Over the next several days, the whispers returned. Sometimes he heard his name while driving to work. Sometimes while taking out the trash after dark. Sometimes in the middle of the night. Always the same voice. Always the same quiet whisper. "Daniel." He never answered, not once. Walter's warning echoed constantly in his mind. If the river calls your name, don't answer. A week later, Daniel made a decision. He drove back to Black Cedar River, not to fish, not to prove anything, only to say goodbye. The old boat ramp was empty once again. The river looked peaceful beneath the autumn sky. Golden leaves drifted slowly across the surface. If Daniel hadn't known what had happened, he would have believed it was the most beautiful place in Maine. He walked to the edge of the dock. For several long moments, he simply stared at the water. Then he spoke quietly. "I'm never coming back." The river remained silent. Daniel turned and walked toward his truck. Just before reaching the driver's door, he heard one final sound behind him, a single splash. He looked back. Far out in the middle of the river, an old wooden fishing boat floated motionless. A man wearing a faded yellow raincoat sat inside. His head was lowered, his face hidden beneath an old fishing hat. Daniel closed his eyes. He remembered the warning. Don't answer, don't look. He climbed into his truck, started the engine, and drove away without looking back again. He never returned to Black Cedar River. Months later, Daniel sold his fishing boat. He gave away every fishing rod he owned. Friends couldn't understand why a man who loved fishing more than anything would suddenly quit forever. He simply smiled and said, "Some places are better left alone." Years passed. Life slowly returned to normal. The whispers finally stopped, or so he believed. Then, one cold October evening, Daniel's daughter Lily, now a young woman, came home from a camping trip with friends. She smiled as she walked into the kitchen. "Dad, we found a beautiful little river today." Daniel looked up. "Really?" She nodded. "It was called Black Cedar River." Daniel's face instantly turned pale. Before he could speak, Lily laughed. The strangest thing happened. Daniel felt his heart sink. "What happened?" She looked at him curiously. "I thought I heard someone calling my name from the water." The room fell completely silent. Daniel slowly stood. His hands began to tremble, just as they had 24 years earlier. He looked directly into his daughter's eyes and said only 4 words. "Never go back there." Lily had never seen fear on her father's face before. She never returned to Black Cedar River. But every autumn, when thick fog settles over the dark water, local fishermen still tell the same story. They say an old wooden boat sometimes appears near Dead Man's Crossing. Inside sits a lonely fisherman in a faded yellow raincoat. He never speaks first. He simply waits. Because sooner or later, someone will hear a familiar voice calling their name from the river. And if they answer, the river may never let them leave. I hope everyone enjoyed the story. I'll see you again with a new one. Until then, take care and look after your family. Goodbye.